Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Craft Blend book review. Today we have a fun little special after a little bit of hiatus that we took. We ended up taking one because I was moving and there was just a bunch of life stuff happening. So I'm finally in the new place, and now we're back to kind of trying to get back on track with all the books that we were going to do. Um, we are going to start out with the two books by John Green. So we're starting out with The Anthropocene Reviewed and Turtles All the Way Down. Um, and basically, The Anthropocene Reviewed is a nonfiction that he wrote, and then also Turtles All the Way Down is a fiction book that also has a movie now. And we have also watched the movie, so we're excited to talk about it.
Yes, we are.
How are you feeling, Daniel?
I'm feeling great. I love our history to give the viewers a little a little flashback of youth us and how we would share books and how we would talk about authors. And me and you had like a common favorite, which was John Green. And we've read most of his books, and if not all of them, I
I
think
was
may
about to say, I think
I'm
I've read
like
all of them.
I think
I
we've
was
read all of
surprised
them.
because I think when we first started talking about it, right? Like we were like discussing which books we've read, and I was like, huh, I'm pretty sure I've read every single one of them at this point. Not that I have like I would say that I loved all of them, but I've read most of his collection, so I would say
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
And that's where we came into like, oh, the only one we haven't read was the more recent one, which was
Which is
Turtles All the
Turtles.
Way Down. Yeah, so we're like, oh, let's do it as a double book special that we love.
Yeah.
Yes, but yeah, I'm feeling really good. It's if it gives it reminisces like when we first started the episodes this year in season 2 or whatever we call this season, but like how we started with like a flashback from the past and reading our favorites. This felt like a cool part 2 to that first episode of this year. So ah, it rekindled my love with John Green. I was like, oh
Yeah.
my God, I miss him. And then we were, because me and you, like with Stephen King and Neil Gaiman and all these things, like sometimes we're harsh with what some of our favorite writers.
A
And
little
it's like
bit.
we keep going, yeah, exactly. And we keep going back. They're comfort food. They're comfort food. So his, we got to meet him and we
Well,
got to get to,
kind of meet him.
well,
Really, we
well,
watched him on
we,
stage.
we were in the same, I know, right? I know, right? But we got to see him in person.
Yeah,
But
that was really cool. So I think we did it
yeah.
through the school. They had said they had given I think I got an email about it and then I told you about it and I was like, "Oh my God, let's go." So that's when
Yeah,
we
we were
decided to go.
freaking.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. It was nice to get a signed copy. I also have my copy. This is what mine looks like right now. All of my little
All the
tags.
annotations. I love those. It's
Yeah.
because I don't know. Sometimes I annotate, but sometimes I don't. I'll get into a pattern one day.
I don't really annotate more than anything. This is my little signature. You can't see it there. More than anything, I just mark sections that I liked, and then maybe if like something stood out to me, I'll outline it. But
Yeah.
I sometimes like don't like write stuff, and then like I feel like that's where I mess up because I'm like I forget what I wanted
Yeah.
to
It's so
highlight.
like because I immerse. I get so
Yeah,
immersed that
exactly.
I'm like, oh my God. I think annotation is good on a second round.
Yeah, on the second
But
read, yeah.
then I'm a different type of reader in where like I like new adventures, so it's really really
Hard to
hard for me to
reread, yeah.
reread.
So I didn't I probably will have forgotten why I annotated some of them, but I think what I did was a lot of like the lines that stood out to me. But anyways, we'll get into that a little bit later.
But yeah, but Anthropocene is his, like you mentioned it early at the top of the show, it's his foray into nonfiction, which we were thinking about it, like on the walk over there to the campus to meet him and stuff like that. We're like, that is such a great idea with him because with his podcast and his YouTube channel
Yeah.
and all of that, he's just such a great talker. It's like we love it.
Yeah.
So we're like, oh, nonfiction. And you know, me as an adulthood, like I'm getting more into nonfiction. When I was younger, I was no like I was like fiction. So like it's just I really, really loved it. What did you end up giving it?
Oh, I gave it a 4-star review. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
It
Four,
was really good.
4.5. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I would give it like a 4.5. I don't really remember what I put, but I know I did. I give it a 4, I think. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so we loved his foray into nonfiction. Yeah. And then a lot like I was telling you about like pandemic art and how like we're starting to get a lot of books like written in the pandemic through those times that we were like, oh, the world stood still and we were all like paralyzed and
Yeah.
just going through the motions. Because this, I would consider this like, a pandemic art, like book created with by the pandemic, especially with the earlier chapters. And then he sprinkles like little anecdotes of like, how he views and reviews things of life and how it goes back to being in a standstill because of the pandemic and getting to self-realize
Mhm.
like life itself. So basically the book is like reviewing things in his life and giving them a 1 through 5 star rating. So what were some of your favorite passages
Oh man,
that stood out to
I
you?
had a lot of them. That's why I have all the annotations. I would say like a lot of them were just really good. I couldn't even tell you that I could just pick one. Most of the time what stood out to me, and this is the one thing about um John Green, is that he's a good writer, but he always has like one line that really just gets to you and like really hits. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like he's talking and you're invested, and then all of a sudden he'll say something and you're like blown away a little bit by it. There was one that really like it stood out to me a little bit. It was the chapter on the academic decathlon, right? And I find it so interesting because this chapter kind of like the way he views himself, right, is in a bit of like he doesn't feel like he's a smart person, or like he described himself as not smart as his friend. I think his name was Todd. So he calls this friend like he's super smart, all this stuff. And he kind of describes himself as like this person who's not really like super into like, school, studying, things like that, which is surprising to me because I view him as a very smart person, right? So
Yeah.
I wondered how much of that was just his own perception of himself, or if like sometimes we don't realize that like, to us someone can seem really smart or whatever, but maybe
Yeah.
they actually weren't, whatever. But the one passage that stuck out to me, I think, was this section I really liked, and it's a little bit of more of a depressing one, but I just really liked the section.
Yeah, he
So it
still
says,
pulls at the heartstrings.
for days now, my brain has refused to allow me to finish a thought. So he's talking about his OCD, constantly interrupting with worries. Even my worries get interrupted by new worries or facets of old worries I had not adequately considered. My thoughts are a river overflowing its banks, churning and muddy and ceaseless. I wish I wasn't so scared all the time. Scared of the virus, yes, but there's also some deeper fear, the terror of time passing and me with it. And like I don't
Damn.
think I ever connected more with a person, writer, author than I did in that very moment. I was like, this
Yeah.
feels so much like what I have going on too. So it just he has so many moments like that that are just they really stick
Yeah.
out to me. What
Yeah,
about you?
I was like a hot mess in some passages because it's like half memoirish
Hmm.
mixed in with the reviews of everyday life. And it's just like when he mentions the love for his friends and his wife and all of that and interjects, with the pandemic and then that sense of like we all will eventually die and leave this earth, and then with his fiction books, which we'll get to the second half, where he does pull on those heartstrings with Fault in Our Stars, even with Turtles All the Way Down. It's these existential questions of life. And I really, really get sad, and it's relatable that he beats himself up too much as a human being. Like I'm like, oh, and he's worried about that throughout the book too, like if he's not going to make a stand in this world. And it's like, John Green, you gave us so much, and it's like, shut the fuck up. You're awesome.
Well, yeah, it's one
But
of those things that I think we all feel, which is like,
yeah, it's total.
what is our imprint going to be on the world? How are we going to affect the people around us? And some of us do want to affect the people around us in some way, whether, mostly good, hopefully, but some of us do care about that, what we're leaving
Yeah.
behind, what kind of legacies. But yeah, no, definitely. Oh, he has this way of with existentialism that I love and I've always admired
Yeah,
from him.
so good. Yeah, because it's just like he also has those breathing moments, those quiet moments, even in his fiction as well. So it's just like I love it that he makes us think and makes us pause and smell the roses. Some of my favorite passages, um, a lot of them were like into like nostalgia level, which is like the history and stuff like that of scratch and sniff stickers and stuff like that. And then even I love like he goes so nerdy sometimes because like me and him have like our favorite drink, which is also Aza's favorite drink, which is like Dr. Pepper.
That's also my
So
favorite
like
drink.
yeah, so every time I break a diet, the reason I'm not hyperbolizing, I always break my diet when I go like no sugar, no soda, no all that. I always break it because Dr. Pepper brings me back. It's like evil. I relapse because of that thing. So oh my God. But yeah, but
Yeah.
and then other than, with the memoir interlaced into this, I also love that he's like, which is funny with your passage of him not being smart enough or stuff like that. Like I learned so much from this book.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, like for example, like Monopoly was technically invented by a woman.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So it's like, oh shit. And then they just stole her idea. And it's always men stealing. I can't. But it's like, I was like, oh shit. And just like, it's like the whole book is my favorite thing, but just the balance of nostalgia because we're almost the same year old, we're almost in the same generation. So it's like, growing up in 80s, 90s and all of that. And just also he just we could listen to him talk forever and just throwing out facts like that. It's just uh, I really, 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 really loved it.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. I highlighted so many things that I just loved about some of them was other quotes that he used from other people, but a lot of it is just stuff that he himself said. Um, Here's another one that I found that I really liked. And this one was about like this one I really enjoyed because it talked about like um just us, right? And the way that and then the world. It says looking up toward the looming mountain ranges in the distance, I was reminded of what nature is always telling me. Humans are not the protagonists of this planet's story. If there is a main character, it is life itself, which makes of Earth and starlight something more than Earth and starlight. And it's just like little things like that that just hit you right where you like right where it like you feel the most, right? Like I think that that's one of the things that I've always liked about him. But yeah, and I can't say enough good things about it, I think it was really good. I would say the only thing that maybe was fell short for me, the reason I couldn't give it a full five was because it is memoir based. So some of the things that he reviewed were mostly about his life, which is fine. I mean, it's his book. But it also was like hard for me to connect to some things because of that. Because when you think of the Anthropocene, you're thinking of things that we all have kind of witnessed and seen. And some of the stuff are specific to him, like Indianapolis, like the ginkgo tree, which even though they have even aside from that, they have beautiful passages anyway, so you find something to connect to. But there is certain parts of it where I was like, okay, this is like mostly a John Green thing, not really like an everybody thing.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah, that
probably would be the only thing that I had trouble with because there were some chapters where I was a little like I didn't feel much and I want to kind of move on to the next thing.
Yeah, and going back to like learning things, I didn't even know the word Anthropocene. I didn't even
Yeah.
know her. I so to get like when he did his like talk at the campus and stuff like that and explaining it and all of that it's the time period and where humans impacted the earth and all of that. So it's just like even with the title, even with the freaking title, I'm learning. So, but I get that criticism of why, because I think so too, why I gave it a little bit less a little bit less. It's just like it could some passages could be a little shaky and some were really short too.
Yeah.
So yeah. But it's nice to have like a stream of consciousness during like the diary of like pandemic months.
Yeah.
you
No, no,
know,
I found myself relating heavily to John Green, not only in like how he views the world, but just in his existentialism. I mean, I know that I've
yeah.
read some of the passages. I would sit there and I'd go, man, I've thought this exact same thing, or I've been battling with the same like focus. And it's just, it's nice to know that like even someone that I admire is questioning themselves just as much as I would be. And I think that's something that's really nice. And what connects us about reading and about everything like that, I think that's really nice to know that you're not alone.
Yeah, you're not alone. And it's also like speaking of that and existentialism and all of that, like this book would also be pretty kick-ass in like an academic setting. And then also it could be really good as a for a writing class, like a writing assignment,
Yeah.
which what would we review in our own lives? That could be like a an activity like a group of class could do, and it's just like it creates discussion. It creates such like an but
Yeah.
yeah, like
No, I could
yeah,
see that.
it
I could
made me
see like
want to
high school
write.
students sit down and like
Yeah,
talk about things. Yeah, no,
because
for sure.
yeah, I remember that I'm like I think I text you. I'm like it makes me want to write.
Yeah.
This book makes me want to write. Like I want to write my own reviews of like something like it's just so good,
Yeah.
so good. But yeah, so we're going. Basically, we recommend it highly.
Yeah, I
His,
would
the
definitely
the
recommend it.
first foray into nonfiction is an A plus, an
Yes.
A. So like he's gonna continue nonfiction. His next one is going to be about lupus. Yes, right.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's about lupus and then all of that, and then so we'll stay tuned. You know, I like this new era for John Green.
Yeah.
But we're going now into
Turtle.
Turtles all the way down. Okay, so how was it going back into like a young adult high school
I mean,
fiction?
well, I mean, I wouldn't say going back to it. I always have
I
loved
know we
young
always
adult.
read.
I still
I
read.
know.
I
Yeah,
still
we
read
still
young
read.
adult. I still enjoy it. But yeah, no, it was really nice, and it was like it was an interesting like I felt like, oh wow, like I would have known these girls or I would have been these girls. You know what I mean? Like I would have been one of them and I would have either like I had friends who wrote fan fiction. I wrote fan fiction myself as a kid, like
We've written fan fiction together on
exactly.
Live Journal.
So like it definitely was like just kind of like the I think if anything it would have connected millennials more than anybody else.
Exactly. Yeah, I really like I just love the way he writes characters.
Yeah.
It's so good. And then like you had said, that I feel like we could relate to both of them at different
Yeah.
stages, like Daisy and Asa. And it's very millennial coded. I totally agree. Like Asa as a protagonist, oh my God, I really, really loved her shyness into things. And then I learned, talking about learning as well, I learned more facets about OCD with her as a character, like because I always thought, because like I don't joke around but kind of joke around, and I'm like OCD, but I think of it more in the cleaning aspect. Then I'm always like having to clean a counter or like do all the tasks, or like a book has to be this like perfect and stuff like that, and sometimes I have to lock a door multiple times. But like I hers was like totally a bit different. Like I never saw that aspect of OCD.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I think the thing that is new, and it's a new, not a new term, but it's just something that's been more of awareness of OCD, is you because it's obsessive compulsive. Some people have a tendency to have be more compulsive, while others tend to have a tendency to be more obsessive. And the obsessive part of it is more internal, so it happens more in your head than in an outward compulsion. Now, in Aza's case, she had a bit of both, mostly internal, but then she had the other compulsions that, she had to do certain things. But some people actually only experience it inside their minds, and I think that's pretty
yeah,
crazy.
were you freaking out a bit with the hand sanitizer? I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. When we saw the movie, remember that I had to like look away? I couldn't. But yeah, so what do you think of Asa
I liked her.
or
She
Aunt
was a
Daisy?
she was a good character. I think definitely they complemented each other within the book. I think
Yes.
I think that it helped having Daisy because one, you get your typical teenage story through Daisy, but then also that lets you see how different Aza's experience was. And you definitely can't have one without the other, I think. You needed both of them to really experience what Aza was going through because she was like kind of alone in this world where teenagers are doing teenager things. She herself isn't has to grow up faster in certain ways. And I think that I really like enjoyed seeing her go through that because
Yeah.
I connected heavily with her. Being that I was I don't think I have OCD, but I did have a lot of depression when I was a teenager, and I really felt like other people would be so happy and so like excited to wake up and go to school, and I like, I didn't feel that way, right? And so like to see a character go through something that I feel like everybody goes through a sadness, right? But to feel like you're alone or that like no one gets it because no one understands exactly what's going inside your head. I really like enjoy that aspect of Aza. So it was hard at times because I could see myself in her and that was difficult. But then, I also saw myself in Daisy and Daisy was just adorable. So it was
Yeah.
just it had its seriousness through Aza, and I think fun and comfort through Daisy.
Yeah. No, totally agree. And Daisy does get like real. There
Yeah,
are parts that I'm like, oh my God, that was me. Especially that sometimes Daisy could be so harsh with her words. I was like, stop putting me on the page. Like, stop it.
yeah.
Oh my God. And using an outlet, which she uses fan fiction in order, she has like a similar character to Aza.
Yeah,
Now, when Aza finds that out, then it's
yeah.
like, oh my God.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I really loved that line specifically, and I don't remember the full line right now, but it was such a weird place to be because like I could understand both of them, right? Like here is your best friend and she's only kind of focused on herself and what she's going through, and here I'm going through all these things and I don't know, like
yeah,
growing up too. But then Aza says like uh, imagine like it's just mustard all the time, right? Like she makes that a connection
yeah,
where you're like, oh, she's like mustard, you can only take her in doses. And it's like, oh, imagine being that. Imagine having no escape from what you are. So it's
yeah,
like, it was hard because I was like there, I've had friends say like, oh, you're just too depressing. I don't want to hang out with you. And it's like, yeah, I wish I could leave too,
welcome
dude.
to every day.
I
Yeah.
want to get the fuck out of here too. So like it was just like to be able to see that and have someone talk about it in a way that like I feel like if this had been written when I was in high school, man, it would have been a totally different thing for me. I think I would have definitely connected very heavily to Aza.
Yeah. And then I also love in the different dynamics of the friend when Daisy checks her in for her privilege as well. I was like,
Yes.
damn, Daisy. And it was like real. John Green does amazing with characters. And we haven't even
Hmm.
talked about the plot,
I know, right?
which the plot is so unique in this one. But like, oh, it's just the characters are on point. They feel human, they
Yeah.
feel flawed, they feel real. Like
Yeah.
it's just
Oh
like
yeah, that I think that's one thing you can say about John Green's writing is his
mhm,
characters feel like your everyday person walking around. You can see these
yeah.
people just living their lives in real life in real time.
Yeah, exactly. They leap off the page.
Yeah. And I
Exactly.
really like that Daisy, I think, expresses herself out loud because I feel like sometimes when you're a teenager, you can either be passive aggressive about it or you can be like too harsh and not understanding. And I think Daisy provided like a little bit of that tough love, but then realizing like, this isn't something that she can just turn off and realizing
Yeah.
shit, like I said something that was harsh, but this isn't like that's not what I meant. It's not how I wanted to say it, right? Like we've all said something like that where it's like we say it in the moment, in the heat of the moment, and you're like, I didn't mean to say it like that, but it came out that way,
Yeah.
right? And then you
Exactly.
you
It's the
want to take
growing
it back.
pains.
Yeah, you want to take it back, but you can't. It's already out there. And so it's like it was nice to kind of see that as well with Daisy to kind of see what it felt like to be that friend who has to kind of like not wanting to say it like that but put up with a person who has a struggle like that and how hard it is for them too. And yeah, the whole thing with checking her privilege, I think that's something that was important too because I remember she would often say like, oh, not everybody can have like a car their dad gave to them, and not everybody has all the money to go. Like, of course, all this money that I'm gonna get is a lot. It's great. I would love it,
Yeah.
right? So it just, yeah, he does a good
Yeah.
job.
With the three main characters, we kind of get each class system. We get
Mm-hmm.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, we
You
get
get your
like
poor,
you're
your middle, and
poor,
then
middle
you're rich.
class, and then you're rich. Now,
Yeah.
talking about other characters, so our other main kind of mainish character would be Davis, the love interest, which I feel could have been explored more in both iterations, the book and the, obviously, ultimately, it's Aza's story.
Yeah.
So, like, basically, the plot is just that Davis with his brother Noah, they are like basically kind of orphaned already. Their dad has gone missing. So like, and then that's where Asa is childhood friends with Davis, and then Daisy has the bright idea of like, because there's a contest, not a contest, but there's like a reward for
Yeah, for
any
information.
information on the disappearance of his dad. So
Yeah.
that's what drives the through line of the characters. It's more character heavy than really plot heavy.
I
And
mean,
then
I
the
would say that's a given for John Green too. Like
yeah, it's
his book is
characters
just very
first.
characters first, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, character first. So some books
To
are
his
amazing that
to his
way.
detriment sometimes too. Like we've talked
Yeah,
about this with other books. To the detriment of the
exactly.
story sometimes because these characters are great, but then the storyline is a little
But then
uh
again, it goes to the realism of life because
right.
even with love interests like in Paper Towns or Fault in Our Stars, and even with this one, it has to me like different outcomes that I think teenagers need to see. That life is not glorified with like happily ever after and like the true love and white picket fences and stuff. Life is messy for these characters, and then it
Yeah,
doesn't
but I don't
go.
mean that. I mean more in the sense of like the plot is boring. So like you're struggling to get through the story.
No, no, I totally get you because it has those cozy vibes, like a
Not this one,
cozy.
not Turtles All the
Yeah,
Way Down. I mean like other books of his. There are some of them where the plot is just a little boring.
yeah,
But the
but no, but
characters
that's what
make it.
I'm doing into contrast of that. That sometimes you think he would go the conventional way. You think he'll go to the conventional way with some plot lines, but ultimately it's to serve the character first. And in order to get that realness, I'm respecting him more adult wise. That, as a teenager, I think we were harsher because he doesn't go the conventional way of happy endings and all of that. So with that's just my opinion on it.
I get you.
I'm being more
I'm gonna
softer on John
disagree with
Green.
you a
I need
little
to
bit there.
apologize sometimes for.
I'm gonna go against you a little bit there, because I would say that an abundance of Catherines and looking for Alaska fell a little short for me, because
Yeah, but we don't talk about we don't talk about those. We
okay. Again, his
but I
characters were
get you.
interesting, but for me, that's where his detriment can be sometimes with his stories, because he
Yeah.
could do he it's not that he can do it better, but there are just some stories that are less
Yeah,
plot
no,
focused.
both points are super duper valid.
Yeah.
So with we could do that as a caveat to the review is like if you love vibes and characters above plot, then you will totally enjoy this. But if
Yeah.
you're more a plot heavy person and stuff like that, then maybe, it's not your vibe.
Yeah, or you're just
So,
enjoy a little bit less. But I think that either way, the
yeah, no, either
storyline was
way I still think
interesting
so.
enough that you can because by the end of it you're interested, right? Because the whole point is that his dad is missing. Davis's dad is missing, and we don't know where he is. And there's all these hidden like little things and little notes, and there's like the camera thing, and you get to like you find yourself following it, like, oh, what happened? Where is his dad
Yeah,
all
the
this time?
mystery, the slight 10% mystery.
Yeah, so there is like it's enough to keep you kind of invested, but then on top of like just witnessing these characters and what they're doing. I mean, definitely characterization is his number one.
Yeah. I still think that maybe Noah, the little brother, had more character development than the actual love interest, Davis, at least for my opinion.
I agree.
Like he's not the strongest, like he has I think in the book does better. I really do
Mm,
think that I think the movie
we
does a
haven't
missed
started talking about the
opportunity.
movie yet.
Yeah, no, of course. So like at least for book format of Davis, I think he was like it's so weird. Have you ever wanted like a another side book on the on somebody else's point of view? I feel like Davis's was missing just slightly.
Then of course we're comparing it to the movie, and the
Yes.
movie is definitely a it's mostly the same, right? I would say, and then it has its little moments where it's different. So you were talking about Noah.
Yes, Noah, like at least for my opinion of it, I felt like in the book that Noah side plot through line was so impactful. I really enjoyed it in the book that the movie is missing. But I could understand a movie is 1 hour, 30 minutes. So you have to like cut corners at certain things. So, like, I could understand. And overall, it goes back to this is Aza's story,
Yeah, yeah.
ultimately, ultimately. But going into now to that territory or question of like movie versus book that sometimes we throw in some of our episodes that we see the adaptation for the film.
Hmm.
And I feel like this is an equal pairing. It's an equal pairing. It's not like, when they say the book is better than the film or whatever. In
Yeah,
this case, both are pretty great and existing codependently.
yeah.
Now, granted, I could do an asterisk and then I feel like the book gives more detail. So
Hmm.
I could still recommend both. Just because I think ultimately the movie doesn't do everything.
Yeah, like the
So the
lizard or whatever the heck that thing was.
yeah, even though that was a good thing, they kind of cut
I
because
will say, yeah, I would say that it's a little bit interesting that they cut it, and it makes sense that they cut it. But
yeah. And then me and throughout the movie, I'm like, he has no staff. He has no because the
that
book,
I missed though. That part I did miss because the
yeah, I
book
did
gives him
miss
like other people that are around him that are kind of have his
like the
good like a
PR.
yeah, they have
Yeah,
and they also have a little bit of his best interests at heart. They're caring about him, but they're not completely invested in him. I think those characters would have done well to still have kept. But yeah, there's that
yeah.
difference. And then you were talking earlier about the dad with the car of Aza's.
Oh yes, this was offline that we were kind of recapping each other and stuff like that. Yeah, like in the movie format, we get the Asa backstory that they did really good in that exposition where they show and like, well, they tell too because there's narration, but like we get the history of like Asa's dad passed away, like, and then she gives him the car or whatever. But the movie format does the dead dad, but doesn't like when they get into the car accident in the second half and she's freaking out, because in the book you're in Aza's mind, so that car like Applebee's, that car is like a character.
Yeah.
It's like a character in the book.
She even names
So
him and everything, right?
yeah, Hubert,
Henry, maybe? I don't
I
remember.
don't
Started
know,
with an
it's with an
H.
H.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, those are little nitpicky details that the movie does miss because overall it does service Daisy and Aza's like
Yeah.
friendship, and it
Hmm.
ultimately is Aza's story, like I've repeated 20 times. But like
Yeah.
the movie does that too. It cuts the corners and stuff
And
like that.
that's another thing that I wanted to talk about, which is just that whole thing about the fact that it is Aza and Daisy's story, because the significant others of each of them are just like they're
Yeah, Michael
semi-important
and
to the
they, yeah.
plot, but they're not integral. It's mainly just about these two friends and what they're going through, and one of them just happens to have a mental illness that is
Yeah, and
affecting her
that's what
life.
I like, that it's not
Yeah.
conventional.
And I
Ultimately,
like
it's
that it,
the
yeah, and I like that it talks about like their friendship, how they connected, how they're kind of like almost each other's platonic love. Like they care more about each other than whatever else is
yeah.
happening. And I really like that aspect because it was really sweet. I mean, I think that we've all had like a best friend that we knew we were gonna just like stay connected with forever. And then on top of that, like they have fights just like any relationship would. You have your good and your bad, right? Everybody has a moment where stuff gets tough, you don't talk about things properly, and then you come back and you're friends again because you forgave
Yeah.
each other. And it was real. I mean, it happens all the time. So I really like that aspect
Yeah,
too.
not all soulmates are romantic interests. They're
Exactly.
not, and I love that
And no
about this.
relationship is gonna be perfect, whether you're
And
friends
that's
or you're
where
lovers, you're gonna have your issues.
the movie triumphs a little bit more,
Mhm.
is that it makes that abundantly clear, and it makes that front and center. Even though
And
the
it
book
gives the
does that
mom
too.
a lover. That's right. The movie, I think movie version also does mom more justice because I feel like book version didn't speak about mom too much, but I think the
Yeah.
book definitely gives you an insight into the mom's life and what it's like for her trying to live a normal life while having a daughter that has OCD. You see it more clearly, I think, in the
Yes, you
movie.
see, wait, I totally agree with you. That's why it's so difficult with the movie versus book. It's like both of them bring certain aspects. So that's why this is a tie. It's like both things are great. And
Yeah,
it
no,
doesn't fall into
definitely.
that echelon of like, do the book only or do the movie only.
Yeah, yeah. I think you can
Yeah.
definitely watch either or, and I think you can do both like we did, and then you still have a good time.
Yeah, exactly. Totally agree. Especially that it's like an afternoon read. I blew through this, I think, in 1 or 2 days.
Me
It was
too.
pretty like I couldn't like and I liked it because it was like an episode of Dawson's Creek where I could just get into it and just continue
No, no,
reading.
yeah, for sure. I found I we remember I started it and then I think I finished it literally like what or two a day or two afterwards. I think I had told you that
Yes.
I was done.
And
It was good. It kept
yeah.
you invested.
And dare I do say it. I think it's not counting Anthropocene, but fiction sense. I think it's my second favorite. I think I love it more than Paper Towns
Yeah.
and more than Abundance of Catherine and stuff like that. But of course, I don't I that's when I'm scared of Heather
For me it was
because
turtles. If I'm
I
gonna
feel
hierarchy them, turtles for me won them all.
yeah, for me that's I'm second guessing myself. I feel like I need to reread A Fault in Our Stars, but I still feel like that one. I don't know why. There's a love I have
I
for
think
Fault
there's
in Our
like
Stars.
there's also a nostalgia to it. I mean, we all it
Yeah,
was an
and the
investment. I mean, it was Tumblr era, you know. Everybody was okay,
yes.
okay, right? Like that was everywhere. So like I think
Yeah.
it makes sense that you would prefer that one. I mean, I think it was I think at that stage, right, John Green got on the radar of us all. Like that's what put him on the map. I think that that's the first book I ever had heard of him. Even like outside of like even with the whole YouTube thing and everything, right? Like I didn't know about them until The Fault in Our Stars. So like
Yeah.
I would say that yeah, it would make sense. But for me, no, I think Turtles of all the books he's written, Turtles is definitely my favorite of his
Yeah.
fiction.
Third place is still Paper Towns. I really dig that book.
Yeah.
Yeah. In my top three. But yeah,
I'm
but
trying
I'm
to think of what my top pick would be because I actually didn't really like The Fault in Our Stars was okay. I didn't really like love it though. I would maybe Looking for Alaska is my second, and then like
which I think Looking for Alaska's is first, no?
I can't remember. And then
Yeah, it's his
maybe
first.
Paper Towns would be third for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, like
I
I
still
think
haven't
that
funny enough, I still haven't seen the film adaptation of
oh, I
Paper
haven't
Town.
either. I haven't either.
I've been so scared to watch it. I don't know why. Oh my
Uh,
God.
but I think at the end of the day, like John Green, I think will just always have a place in my
Yeah,
bookshelf.
exactly. And that goes with our very last question, being tongue in cheek with the Anthropocene and reviewing shit. How do we review John Green?
John Green gets 5 stars.
He gets 5 stars. I totally agree.
I love
I
John Green.
totally agree.
He
I
just
love him
seems like a
too.
cool person, and even if he's like, even
Yes.
if maybe like I wouldn't like fully connect with him, he just like him and his brother, they just seem so like down to earth, smart people that you
Yes.
would just love to hang out with and talk to, and what do you think about life, John Green? Like that would be a question that I could sit
Yes.
and would want to talk to him about for days. So I think that he just seems like such a cool person. And for me, I admire his writing greatly. I think a lot of my influence is probably John Green the most because the existential way of his writing, I think is something that I myself like to do. So I think that's one way that I really like John Green. So
Yeah,
definitely he's a
totally.
5 star
Same
person.
seas. I agree too. Five stars. And then
Him
I'm
and
just
his brother,
glad.
Hank Green is also a
Yes.
5 star
And
guy.
I'm exactly. And I love that he's a part of our lives and for this many years already. Cause like some of these things have like 15-year or 20-year
Yeah.
anniversary. I'm like,
I mean, when you think about like the millennial, I think experience, right? Like looking back on it, I think John Green and Hank Green are a big part of us, like our
mhm,
growing up.
totally agree.
Because not only do we get John Green through his books, we get the YouTube videos that they do, the Vlogbrothers, and then we also get Hank Green did all of the like videos on like learning. Like even in college, in Miami-Dade and in FIU, we still watch like their videos to
Yeah.
like learn about things. So like they're I think both of them are pretty integrated into the millennial existence.
Yeah. Totally.
They're
Totally.
definitely a mark on our little blip of the world, so
Yeah.
or a
And
blip in time, I guess.
I'm so happy we're back from our hiatus,
Yeah,
bitches. Oh my God, yes.
this was
So
fun.
we'll see you guys next time.
So next time we're gonna do the House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros, who I also got to
You got to
um
meet too.
yeah,
Well,
well, kind of. I got to see her talk. In fact, well,
you got to
actually,
see
no.
her in
Actually, no, no, no. I
person.
did meet her. I did meet her because that she was doing signings as well, and she had like a little booth set up. And let me see. I have it. Where does she write it? Oh no, it was in another book. It's not this one. Hold on, I have it here.
Yeah, it's your
The
the
poetry
other
book, yeah.
yeah.
So this is her poetry book. I'm like a little obsessed with Sandra Cisneros. But this is her poetry book. It's called Woman Without
No, and then
Shame.
well, let me not do any sneak peek of my thoughts on her, but I also want to
It's
read more.
yeah,
A
so
little
it's Woman Without Shame, and then the inscription is cute. So here it is. And it basically says Adelante mujer, which is, go forth woman or go forward woman. So, I thought that was meeting her was so cool, and then whatever. We'll talk about that I guess next time.
yes.
But those will be what we'll be discussing. We're going to be discussing the house on Mango
we're
Street, and we're back. We're
we're
excited.
back, baby. Till next
Yay.
time, guys.
Bye.